In this article, dear friends, we will talk about wealth and money, which I am sure you came to this site with some interest in. Of course, in each of my articles I, one way or another, touch upon the topic of money and wealth, and at the same time the topic of poverty, without which there would be no wealth, but there is still a lot to say on this topic that will be useful to you one way or another. Money and wealth, for most people, seem like an inaccessible blessing, an inaccessible height that only the smartest and most cunning representatives of the human race can climb. But in fact, every person has a chance to get rich, and it is not a matter of luck, but of persistent work in the right direction. The road to wealth is not as difficult as you might think, it's just that many of you don't notice it and don't know how exactly to follow it. If you had been taught how to make money since childhood, you would have a lot of it now, but the thing is that no one needs you to teach you such things. You are taught to toil from morning till night for pennies, taught to mindlessly spend your money on all sorts of nonsense, and taught to sell yourself for money with all your guts. So don't be surprised that things are not going so well with wealth and money. You need to understand that in the head of a rich person there is special knowledge. This is very valuable knowledge about money, and that in general his brain works in a special way. The brain of a rich person is tuned to search for real, not imaginary benefits. Such a person lives a rather practical life and does only what is beneficial to him. Download the right knowledge into your head, teach you to use it, and you too can get rich. Because you will understand how this can be done. But I will repeat once again, no one needs you rich in this world, you are needed to serve the rich, which is what you are diligently taught all your life. I should know this, given my life experience. It just so happened in my life that I gradually went from humiliating poverty to a quite prosperous position, in which I have no particular problems with money. And now I know what this path can be and what is on both sides of a poor and a rich life. The life of a poor person and the life of a rich person, or simply a wealthy person, differ not only in the level and quality of life, but also in its understanding. In fact, this standard of living, which is so often talked about, is not assessed quite correctly in our society. For some reason, thoughtless consumption is considered an indicator of a high standard of living, when you have a bunch of junk, when you can afford to spend money on things you do not need, when you buy a car on credit and an apartment on a mortgage. For some reason, living on credit is considered a rich life, and at the same time no one talks about social security, about freedom from work, about the opportunity to live where you want. And I believe that these are the indicators that are truly important for a person, and they indicate his standard of living. What good is an abundance of junk in your house if you yourself work like a horse every day at a job you hate, without the opportunity to freely dispose of your time? Or, what kind of quality of life is this, in which you are forced to obey some illiterate official who steals people's money and does nothing useful for society? Understand wealth as your real freedom from all these contradictory laws, from work that kills you, from attachment to one place of residence and way of life. As one businessman I know told me, I will never buy myself an apartment in some backwater, because this purchase, if not completely, will still tie me to this place, and I do not need that. He sees life, quite simply live where you feel good, do what you think you need to do, communicate with those people who deserve your attention, and buy what you really need. By God, the man is right. Well, nothing can be said against his convictions. And when you have a zombie box hanging on the entire wall, and you bought yourself a new car on credit, for which you will have to work your ass off for 5 years, and in general, you are all up to your neck in debt, this is not wealth, this is stupid showing off. You have what you are allowed to have, what the owner allowed you to have, and if he wants, he will lower your standard of living several times. By the owner, I mean the ruling class in the country, which will always and under any circumstances live well, because it holds power in its hands. It does not matter how much oil will cost or what the exchange rate will be for green paper with portraits of American presidents, it does not matter what the country's GDP will be or any other indicator, because all this is for you, for the servants, and the owners will always and under any circumstances be well. Thus, it turns out that the so-called wealth, or a high standard of living, is available only to a few, and everyone else is content with only crumbs from the master's table, which now, of course, is not much, but still crumbs. Well, that's how it works for me, but for you there, I don't know what it is. People are all different. Someone bought a used foreign car and is already fanning his fingers, considering himself a hotshot. A pompous life in debt will sooner or later end in great disappointment, maybe not for everyone, but still, people often suffer from their imaginary wealth when it comes time to pay off their debts. I think that those who are properly squeezed during crises deserve it, because greed and stupidity should be punishable in principle, and when you have a bunch of loans, some of which you do not plan to repay, you just need to be punished. Otherwise, your greed will ruin everyone, including you. If the dumb poverty tries to become rich only at the expense of debts, and not at the expense of their intelligence, then, excuse me, who should pay for it? I have repeatedly written that wealth is determined not by the amount of money in your wallet, but by the amount of brains in your head, which many of us lack. So it's not surprising that some snot-nosed brat, who has no brains at all, takes out a loan for his show-off and gets himself some cool toy, like a car. And then his parents pay back the loan for him. Stupid parents raise stupid children, who then cause them nothing but trouble. It all seems to be natural and fair. How many people, in your opinion, want to become rich? I assure you, not many. People only think that they want to be rich. But as soon as you offer them a certain algorithm of actions that can lead them to this very wealth, their desire immediately disappears. Everyone is good at just talking, but no one wants to work. Moreover, people do not want to work, first of all, for themselves. But to work for the man, please, the man drives you with a whip, you can't relax with the man. But to control yourself, to force yourself, this is what most people have big problems with. Guys, no offense, but honestly, in our time, with the opportunities we have, wanting to be rich only in words, this is beyond the pale. I'm not saying that you are obliged to strive for something, it's just that if you are really pressed by all these slave rules of existence, you simply cannot help but start acting. Otherwise, there is no need to say that you want something. If the sofa and TV are your true friends, then you don't want anything. For me, during my cattle existence, everything was very obviously primitive. I hated my job and my employers, my housing was no better than that of the homeless, I ate cheap store-bought crap, and overall I felt pretty shitty, because a slave life, no matter how you look at it, weighs on you. So I had to think and work and think, you see, I had to. I have too much critical thinking and inflated demands on myself and others to ignore a low-quality life. You have to look at life with a sober eye, so as not to be disappointed in it, because if you are nothing special and your whole life gives you nothing but constant employment in someone else's business, then why the hell do you want it to satisfy you? It won't. Such a life will not satisfy you, believe me. No, and there will be no normal life for someone who, on vacation in Turkey or Egypt, spends all the money he saved for the year in a week. There will be no normal life for someone who is forced to buy everything on credit and who has no opportunity to change his place of residence, if there is such a need. What kind of life can there be for someone who is attached to something or someone and who is up to his ears in debt? What kind of wealth and money will a person who is not free even in his soul come to? Can you, without reducing the quality of your life, not work, say, for a year? And can you leave your city for another, better place, for example, to another country? It is enough to run through the news to understand how much people do not value even their own lives. There are shooters, there are murders, there are bandits doing God knows what. Why, one wonders, should a normal person live in a place that is unsafe for him? Why are you sitting in these small towns, putting up with all this nightmare? What kind of damn Khrushchev-era apartment building are you holding on to, or what stupid vegetable garden? Pack your things and move to a place where it's safe, where there's more order and where life itself is better. It's the same with work. If your boss is a pig, you need to leave him. Let him look for other freaks like him. When I worked for one such freak, who sucked all my blood, it wasn't life, it was a nightmare. He really got on my nerves. When I told some of my friends about my terrible situation, they advised me to just leave my freak employer, that's all. No, come on, think about it, how easy it is to just up and leave someone who's gotten on your nerves. Why didn't I do it? Because I was a fool, that's why. You know how useless workers, stupefied and dumbfounded by their bosses, sing, "Where will I go, who will hire me, and what will I do in a new place?" And so on. It's such a nasty whine that your ears just wilt. But I myself once whined like that. And really, where will I go if I'm a fool? Where, into the forest, to eat mushrooms and cottage cheese. And don't ask me where to get cottage cheese in the forest, because if you're a man, you should know about it. And we talk about wealth and money, we talk about standard of living, quality of life, like when you have a new, awesome iPod in your pocket, and it has a cool multi-pixel camera, this is the ultimate dream. Perhaps you will say that I am too demanding of life, of its quality, of people and of myself, and that a person is always dissatisfied with something, so it is useless to try to please him. Well, if you really think so, then I think you are right, and I completely agree with you. But why shouldn't we be so demanding of everything, including ourselves? Why shouldn't we try to make our lives even better, regardless of their current state? What's wrong with that? There won't be enough yachts and mansions for everyone, I understand that perfectly well. But why should some representatives of the human race have excess goods, and everyone else not? Who said that you should bend over backwards for a piece of bread? Maybe you deserve something more, and maybe it's time for you to start bending someone to your will? In life, everything is very simple. Some people do everything they can to live a truly rich life, while others play the fool all day and let others wipe their feet on them. And how can you not wipe them? How can you not oppress those who do not deserve anything else? After all, most workers cannot live without a stick, they simply cannot. I myself have often encountered this phenomenon in my life, when no matter how much you pay a person, he still does not want to work. Such people either have to be thrown out of work, or driven with good kicks in the ass, because they do not understand anything else. Some hired workers are such blockheads that it is very difficult, and sometimes even impossible to work with them. And thank God that I personally rarely come across such workers, while some of my business partners, judging by what they say, constantly experience problems with personnel. So, as you can see, I'm not only trashing rich people here, but I'm not forgetting about less wealthy people either, because the truth is the truth for everyone. The whole point of my reasoning, given the topic of this article, is that every person has what he deserves. Wealth doesn't come to everyone because it doesn't come at all, we can only come to it with our brains and our labor. And in order to take at least the first step, you need to have the desire to live a decent life, and not imitate a quality life with all sorts of loans and unnecessary expensive things. It's you who will read fairy tales on other sites about peace throughout the world, in which every person is well fed, contented, and happy. In fact, there are still a pitiful handful of rich, truly rich people, because there is not enough wealth in this world for everyone. And you can console yourself with your tiny joys and go bow to your boss. This is exactly how I look at real wealth, and if you are not satisfied with my opinion, then you should think carefully about your life. I do not write articles on this site for people, I write them for people, calling things by their proper names. It is never possible to please everyone, especially those pests who always stick their fly in the ointment into someone else's barrel of honey. I will not say that a person is rich not only by money. This site is still about money, and not about spiritual values, so we will talk about them first. In this life, it is important for us to first learn to provide ourselves with all the material goods we need, regardless of our beliefs, and only then think about everything else. If a person is really angry with himself and his life, then he will certainly do everything in his power to change it. You see, knowledge is one thing for us, we certainly need it, and reading books, articles, communicating with smart people, all this of course needs to be done, but without your actions, all your knowledge is garbage. Do you know how many knowledgeable people there are in this life, including those who know everything? Many, very many. Especially in this life, there are many teachers who are ready to teach you everything you need and don't need. And how many people do you know who really do something important, perhaps even something great in their lives, and achieve success in it? Even I can count such people on my fingers. But among my acquaintances there are many serious people. Want to know the secret of rich people? It's very simple, they act. That's the whole secret. Wealth and money come to those who do something, and do not think or reason. Well, to be completely clear, firstly, rich and successful people are mostly adequate people, and secondly, they act when they see some opportunities. You should act too, if you want to get rich. If you do nothing, then nothing will happen, you won't even make mistakes if you do nothing. Of course, you can do things like, for example, creative visualization, in the hope that something will fall on your head for free. But if you are an adequate person, then do not do all sorts of nonsense, but rather turn on your brain and start acting. Don't know where to start? Well, that's exactly where to start. Find out where to start.